Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day two of the Global Carnival Summit. Today, we are excited to have Lolitta Dandoy, who is a fashion journalist from Montreal here, and she's well known across Canada. She is very known for her initiatives towards sustainability in fashion, and she'll be leading the panel on greening the carnivals. So without further ado, I'll pass it on over to Lolita. I'm Tony Jordan, by the way.
Thank you, Tony Jordan. Thank you so much for introducing me. I'm very happy to be here today. As Tony just mentioned, I'm a fashion journalist, and I've been working in the industry here in Canada for about 20 years. And I consider myself also an advocate for sustainability and eco-conscious choices. And even though conscious shopping came into play for me through life circumstances, quite simply, I've wanted to be a fashion journalist since I'm 13. I was very set on that. That's what I was going to be. And of course, I had, some fashion needs or wants, and my mom could not give that to me. So she told me, why don't you go thrifting? I had no idea what that meant. And I decided to go very reluctantly. But then I discovered that beautiful things and realized that today that's how I know about great fabrics, about, how clothes are made. And I consider that it has really defined my career. So I want to thank my circumstances and thank my mom because I feel that the vision that I have today on fashion and consumerism really kind of sets me apart from my colleagues. And it has transformed my passion for fashion, which is often considered as something superficial, which I don't think it is. But, when people hear about it, into something really meaningful. And proof again today, I get to host this wonderful panel that is titled Greening the Carnival, Sustainable Initiatives for Environmentally Friendly Celebrations. So as carnivals grow in scale everywhere in the world, so does the need for sustainable practices that really honor the environment while preserving the vibrant spirit of celebration. And our goal today, with my wonderful guest that I will introduce very soon, is to inspire festival organizers, designers, and the community of leaders alike to implement sustainable methods that enhance Carnival's vitality, while respecting the planet. And to achieve that, we have reunited a panel of three experts who have pioneered effective eco-conscious solutions within their respective carnivals, showcasing strategies that reduce environmental impact and foster economic resilience. That part is really important because the two of them can coexist. Our panel will explore the integration of recyclable materials, upcycling within costume design, creative reuse of floats, and energy efficient technologies. We'll also discuss sustainable transport options that will really mitigate the environmental costs of large-scale events and encourage greener participants and audience involvement. So we will try to get to discuss about all of this, but without further ado, I want to introduce my guests, starting with Pax Nindi. So Pax Nindi is a globally recognized carnival expert and a true cultural visionary. With over a decade at the helm as senior officer and head of department at Arts Council England, Pax has shaped strategies for circus, carnival, and street arts, including authoring the National Carnival Arts Strategies and producing two influential international carnival conferences. He is the vice president of the World Carnival Commission and chief executive of Global Carnivals, forging artist collaboration across the Bahamas, Brazil, the USA, Canada, Trinidad, Italy, France, and Germany. His commitment to environmental sustainability has led him to advocate for green practices within carnival culture, an initiative he shares through his online platforms that I strongly encourage you to discover, and conferences. So through his work, Pax brings a dynamic voice and deep cultural expertise, helping to guide the carnival's future towards a sustainable, innovative, and globally connected experience. Thank you, so much, Pax, for being with us. And I know I've already covered a few things, but can you tell us a bit more about yourself, maybe what has brought you to doing all these wonderful things?
I think you've covered everything. You're right. And I think with my organization, Global Carnivals, we started this, I think, during the pandemic, which most people, that's when they went through their blue thinking, whatever it's called, blue sky thinking. And that's when we really seriously started doing Jankanu Carnival channel, which is Jankanu, as not as in Jankanu as in Bahamas, but Jankanu is making new things out of junk, encouraging the sector to do that. I mean, I think we're going to, with our discussion, you're going to find out it's quite a challenge to actually get the sector to gel on this when you know that they struggle so much to get their sponsorship, later on to sit down and start doing some greeny issues. So that was one of the things, seeing carnivals locally and around the world, seeing how much was being messed about with the environment, having these big, massive floats without any explanation. For me, that's what actually made us, our concern of sharing and actual, or the sharing, the awareness of the green issues. That's what actually forced us to actually come and do what we are doing now with the sustainability.
And Jankanu, we can find that, is it on YouTube?
It's on Jankanu, it's on YouTube, and it's also on Facebook and Instagram. But okay, the channel for the on YouTube, it's just you can find it as at Jankanu TV.
Okay, Jankanu TV.
And it's Jankanu as in new, as in N-E-W, yeah, making new things out of junk.
Yeah, making new things out of junk. So junk a new. Thank you so much, Pax. And our second panelist is Candice Dixon. I'm sorry, Candice. She's the co-founder and lead designer of SugaCayne. And Candice has truly been redefining Caribbean carnivals art since 2010. She has a background in fashion design and merchandising, which really brings a modern perspective to carnival costumes. And her designs have been featured at major festivals in Toronto, Cayman Islands, Miami, Chicago, and Trinidad. And since 2017, Candice and SugaCayne have collaborated, I want to say this right, with the Toronto Metropolitan University Design Fabrication Zone, also known as the DFZ, to explore 3D printing and laser cutting in costume design. She also has co-developed Canada's first carnival arts course with the DFZ, offering workshops and educational programs for new creators. And through that, she has pioneered, as I mentioned before, 3D printed and laser cut costumes, setting really like new standards for carnival design. And all this pioneering work has led her to be featured on CBC, Breakfast Television, The Social, Now Magazine, and showcased in different venues like the Yorkdale Shopping Center, which is pretty much the biggest shopping center in Toronto, the ones where we have the most kind of cultural activities, the Design Exchange, the Toronto City Hall, Holt Renfrew, and the Royal Ontario Museum. So Candice, I don't know if I've said it all, but please, I would love to hear more about yourself and professional background.
It sounds really good when you say it. No, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here. Lolitta, thank you for hosting us today. And to my esteemed co-panelists, it's an honor to be beside you. You've pretty much said it all. SugaCayne has been a labor of love for the past almost 15 years, which I can't even believe that that's the case. I'm a Toronto kid growing up in this city. Toronto Carnival, or Caravana as we fondly call it, has been a huge part of the fabric of my life and my identity as a Caribbean descendant living in the city. So being involved in Carnival and having a hand in the future of it and where it goes is an honor for me and very exciting for me. As you said, I do now have developed and now teach a course at Toronto Metropolitan University, and being in the school and being on the cutting edge of what is new and exciting in technology, it's also very apparent that sustainability is a huge go forward. Fashion is one of the biggest waste contributors in the world, and Carnival falls into that. So looking to the future and finding ways for us to be more sustainable is a huge part of the work that I've been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And thank you for mentioning that, because it's true. when I was talking before about meaningful work, when you look at fashion and see how polluting it is, we need people like you to bring new ways of costume designing and new ways of seeing things, because, you know, we tend to think that when it's recycled or upcycled, it's not going to be as beautiful. But I think that if we look through your Instagram page, for example, we can see that that's not the case at all. Far from it, actually the opposite.
It's a challenge
in my
to make it,
opinion.
you know, something beautiful, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And we're going to be able to talk about that during the panel. So thank you so much for joining us. And our third panelist is André Loyer. André Loyer is a visionary creator and sustainability advocate whose career spans groundbreaking technological innovation and forward-thinking marketing strategies. As the inventor of the, hope I say this well, Holo Emulator, the world's first virtual holographic simulator, André has really set new standards in digital design. His company, Dimension 3, quickly became a North American leader in holographic technology, and he has developed intellectual property and crafted projects for prominent international clients, blending artistic insight with technical expertise. He's also an ambassador for Good for Global, a platform dedicating to creating positive environmental impact by connecting communities to sustainable initiatives and global movements. What he does there is leverage his knowledge to promote sustainable development and foster local economic growth. He has expertise in social and viral marketing, web communities, and e-commerce. And with that, he brings a wealth of knowledge to initiatives that drive both environmental and economic resilience. André's journey exemplifies the powerful role technology and strategic collaboration play in advancing sustainable solutions in the events and entertainment industry. So André, thank you so much for being here. And once again, please don't hesitate to share a little bit more about yourself if there's something that I didn't mention.
Well, it's quite covered, like said my colleagues. I would say that I was privileged to be like 40 years plus in marketing with a big technology angle. And I've been working like about 200 projects around the world with large scale corporations like Disney and all that. And I've seen the marketing, how important it is. Not as important as sustainability by itself, but I mean, everything boils down to how you're going to be connecting your mission, your vision to that new reality. And it's very important to understand that background. So I went there and I detoxed myself 5 years from the push marketing where you have millions to move ahead your ideas, from a new trend that is more social marketing where it starts from the individual. Good for people, good for community, good for the planet. And when you attach that in your brand and you reposition yourself properly, the opportunity that I would call a new prosperity model, it's the where to find the entrance door. This is why I'm trying to bring maybe a little tone today to give hope and show how it's easy for a corporation as an entrepreneur, very busy thinking about his business, doesn't need to overwhelm himself with a sustainability challenge on top, but you can merge the two and do something outstanding. So I'll try to bring some value in that perspective.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear you on that, because it's true that the same way we have these ideas about how upcycling and recycling can be not as beautiful, we also think it's very difficult to implement. So we'll be very happy to hear about that, and it is very hopeful. So without further ado, we're going to get into the discussion, because we have a lot of topics to cover, and I want to start right away by bringing you back. So I want to know what inspired your respective organization to implement sustainable practices at the very beginning, and how has that shift impacted overall event planning and execution for all of you. And if it's okay, Pax, I will start with you.
Oh, sorry. I just missed what you said. Sorry, Lolitta.
Did you hear me?
No. What was the question?
No, you missed it. You missed it. Okay, so I was just saying that I wanted to go back in time and see how your organization decided to implement sustainable practice, and how's that shift impacted the overall event planning and execution.
Right. Well, as I say earlier, I've been involved with a lot of organizations, a lot of carnivals, and I myself, I'm not going to talk about making things because I'm more sort of person who facilitate rather than make. So Global Carnivals, really, our main thing is to facilitate and make sure that carnival exists all over the world, depending on where it is. So I've been in different places like India, Calcutta, and so on. We put carnivals in all these places, even Miami and places like that. When I saw what was happening, that's as I said earlier, that's when I thought, look, we can't keep going on like that. And that became my cause to do this. So the first thing was to speak with people. To speak with people, you need a TV channel. That's when we launched Jankanyu TV. In Janganyu TV, we're interviewing people from all over the world, from Mexico, from just all different people who actually practice and use sustainable materials, from designers, from, critics to, photographers to teachers and so on. So that people can actually start thinking about it. Within that also, in my work, when I do carnival, for example, I organized the Olympiad in UK, where we had to work with 5 different regions. And that whole thing there was sustainable. We didn't use any big mega lorries. We were using samba for the music. So I think you find out that like things like the Brazilian carnival, they do quite a lot of recycling. So we're using that. And also, I mean, there's certain things like I ran the carnival in Oxford, which is called Carly Road Carnival. When we do that, we actually work with BMW Mini company, the Mini plant. And then they give us a car to work with, which is an eco-friendly car, work with our artists, and then we make that carnival into however our theme is. That kind of working is we're getting commercial people to work with the local artists who may not understand what's happening to sustainability. When we do that, that becomes another unit also that actually helps. So we've been seeing quite a lot of changes in terms of people, but I've been myself personally, in the past, I've been attacked for trying to kill the Caribbean carnival because I'm saying I don't want these big lorries. So it's not an easy job. It's quite a challenge because people are used to use heavy lorries. And nowadays, you can see if you go into the new technology that's coming up, you can have a speaker this small and it can still make as much noise. So the use of needing a big generator, I don't really understand it. Anyway, that's what forced us to get into this whole sustainability issues.
And when you say that you have been attacked for changing what the heart of the carnival is, do you see at least that in the last years the response has been getting better?
It differs. I think there's a lot of education that's needed. So it is changing. I mean, for example, I organized the St. Paul's Carnival in Bristol last year. The year before, they'd used all these big lorries. And I come in and I said, I don't want that. And the management allowed me to work the way I wanted to work, which is nothing like that. So we got milk floats, we got cycles. Then I went into partnership with a commercial company, which are called Mini Rig. And then they managed to sponsor us now to all the floats had nothing to do with that. So the challenge is still there, but it takes a while. I also want to go to a point you were saying earlier about recycling, that, most people worry about recycling when it comes to the carnival because they think it won't be beautiful. Now, that is a lot of rubbish because what happens is I work for the Arts Council. Our job was to see and actually evaluate how people are presenting their things. And I used to get very angry because who's got the power to say this is a beautiful costume or not? I'll give you an example. When a parent comes and works with their child, they make this costume with gato tape and all that kind of stuff. They go on the road. Me and you look at that and say, oh my God, that's rubbish. But for that kid and that parent, this is, oh my God, this is the best costume ever. So sometimes also to do with when start looking at quality, you also have to think about the culture, quality, rather than just quality on its own. Otherwise, you are killing the people who are making that quality.
Totally agree with you on that. And I was mentioning it because that's what some ideas that people have, some false ideas, and I'm happy that you're there to change that. Candice, want to go back in time with you. Also, you just mentioned that you've been doing this for 15 years. And when you're an innovator and a thought leader, at one point you decide to do something. How did you decide that you wanted to go towards that more green line?
Honestly, it wasn't an intentional thing. I was designing and producing costumes like everyone else was. I was a part of several bands through my years as a section leader and costume designer. I sort of went off on the track when I realized that this is actually something I wanted to do full time, I had been working corporate at the time, designing for a big brand, and decided that that was sort of not the direction I wanted my life to go in. I ended up applying for and receiving a grant through the Ontario Arts Council, which gave me the opportunity to go to Trinidad and work with one of the top designers down there. I wanted to learn more about wire bending and other practices for myself. And in doing that, with the designer I was working with, a wonderful gentleman named Douglas John, I was able to learn a lot of the practices that he was using. He was reusing a lot of materials. He would use like bubble wrap to create like fish scales on a costume, and I learned different materials working with him. And so when I came back home, I wanted to implement that a lot into my work. And then one day my husband happened to be at the university for a music conference and bumped into someone who was using a 3D printer, demonstrating a 3D printer in the middle of the school. And I started asking questions and came home and said, hey, have you ever thought about like implementing 3D printing into your designs? I didn't even know what 3D printing was. I looked it up and saw, how beautiful and avant-garde some of these pieces could be, and how it looked like Carnival to me. And I'm like, we could absolutely implement this, which then had us having further discussions with the school and ending up with the design fabrication zone, and starting to hold some workshops and do some projects where we're working with students who were environmental students, fashion students, architectural students, engineers, who are now bringing different ideas to like how we can use different sorts of materials into the costume design. And that's sort of where my mind started changing as to what these costumes actually are. They are works of art. They're not just discardable pieces, number one. We're telling stories, and in the stories that we're telling, the materials that we're using are very important. So we want to make sure that, you dive in, and that's what had us now start showcasing and exhibiting these costumes. It's, again, not just something that can be discarded. It's something that should be on display in a museum where you can discuss the theme and the culture and the reason behind it and the materials that we're using on top of it. And then once I was given the opportunity to have this course, and again, I'm in the School of Fashion and they're talking about sustainable practices, I wanted to make sure that that is where I started to work with my students and making sure that upcycling is a huge part of their actual final project. So it's nothing that this wasn't the path I was deciding to go on. It's the path that I happen to be on. And I do love it. And I think that it's very important for the future of what Carnival is and can be.
And what better way to make sure that that's going to be the future while educating in schools. So this is truly amazing. Thank you very much, Candice. André, so I want to ask you the same question also, but I know that you also want to give us a little bit of a presentation. So please go ahead.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I know that, like I was saying before to you, I don't want to steer people away from the Carnival ambiance, but I think I can stress out how important it is what I'm going to share to you. I'll try to do it and fast forward in 5 minutes. But I'm talking to the entrepreneur, and every person has a project, it's an entrepreneur by itself. And I want to show you an insight, okay, that is not that is not coming out of the blue. 20 years ago, I deposited a document, 10,000 pages on the extension of humanity that led me to take today the vice president and marketing of Good for Global. This company, we took tens and tens of companies to say, here's an entrance door for you to really implement sustainability into your program. So I'll take the lead and I'll run you very quickly to a few stats and an angle for you to consider to implement it in sustainability in your company, in your project. I think I have the lead right now. Tell me when you see me.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
We don't see your presentation yet, though.
Okay, let me pick the right one. Okay. You should see it now.
I don't see it. Maybe we have somebody that could make sure that the screen, that André's screen is being shared.
Yeah, I'm selecting the right one actually.
No, that's okay now.
Yeah, there you go. We see it now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, took some silly. Okay, good for global quickly. It's a vision, it's a spirit. Okay, the good is smaller than the global because you need to something good. It's you. What's its at hand. Okay, you don't seem to see thing as a big thing. Okay, it's local, small steps that collectively bring to a global result. Okay, very important to keep that in mind. Okay, for some reason, it's shifting. Okay. People underestimate the importance of the trend of this sustainability thing. It's much bigger than we believe, and there's an opportunity in there. It's a dominant market. It's a dominant trend. Okay, more than we believe. I'll run you a few stats in a few seconds to understand the magnitude of it. Okay. It's obvious that the facts confirm that all the company will switch in that direction. So it's not an option, it's an opportunity. It's very important to understand that perspective. Actually, the shift, the government, okay, we're very close from government in Canada here, and we've been consulting them, okay. They are going to play catch up here in the United States and Europe in the next few years. And right now it's starting. They're going to give you a sense of the magnitude. Here in Canada, they're going to invest $150 billion in a short period of time to rubber stamp all the company that is showing a small steps toward sustainability. It's not small when I'm saying. You really need to understand that any project, grant, or financial sustainability that is huge in Europe right now is hitting North America, and people are really worried at the government because companies are not ready to take the turn. So it's important to know that. Also, we see it in tens of companies within a focus group. People are having a hard time to attract resources in their company. Like there's a crisis here in Quebec in North America, but 70% of workers are ready to go work for a company that shows some concern and invest sometimes in CRS in the corporate sustainability program. So it's important that people understand the magnitude of that. And the last one is my favorite. I never seen, like I said, did a couple of 100 projects around the world. I've been confronted to big marketing study, and I never seen that in my life. It's the first time around that I see 90% in North American people, all age, all categories, knows that they need to commit to sustained development. This is people, entrepreneur, government, everybody is name it, they're in that mode right now. So there is a trend that is so huge. So you don't need to be to feel a pressure from that. You need to embark in this and really surf on that potential. And but the problem that we've seen, and I'm talking for a lot of company we've been talking to, and Carnival and Promoter are not different. They're the same people to me. The entrance door, it's very hard to find, okay, to really do something and to get access to this grant. But as soon the day people will say no grants for you because you don't even have a little plan of action that you can show me. Very important to know. So for the people to know, there's 190 countries. I'm not talking small thing here that has been voting 10 years ago for the Sustainable Development Goal, the SDGs. But as we talk today, 80%, not 10, 80% of people are not aware of what it is. And it's huge, okay? But people, it's good to understand also, to contribute, you don't need to only save air and water. It could be poverty, hunger, health, education, gender equality. They're all part of a plan of action that is sustainable. It is very important to understand how big it is. And but the people don't know where to start. This is why Good for Global, we create that corporation, because we transform that complexity in a 4P method. Okay, but I'm giving that to inspire. 4P means people, planet, prosperity. How can we talk prosperity about when we talk sustainability? It goes together. And the last P, not the least, purpose. When you find a why that is connected to your people and your value, and you put the plan of action around this path, it's amazing what is happening in a company. And the people, when they work with us, they understand that everything starts with people, and the planet is everything that it's living, biodiversity, and we all have a greater impact than we believe. But it's very easy to have a small say and be part of the solution. Prosperity, it's about strategy. And we don't be afraid to be strategic when we talk sustainability. It goes along. People say, yeah, I got my business to run and now I need to take care of sustainability. No, it's the same thing. Bring it together. It's an opportunity to rebrand your company and to do it in such a way that you will be so attractive to a lot of people. And I'll come to that. Okay, and the last one, the purpose, obviously. When we enter in a company with the 4P method, people don't believe it is easy to implement a plan of action. There's a company like B Corp where you're going to be filling 6 months of paperwork to qualify to be a sustainable company. We do that in 20 hours, stretch on 10 weeks. And what it is that the people do when they do that, it's hard to believe. People think they're gonna talk about saving the planet first. No, the first thing they talk is say, what is your value? I never seen that. I see people crying in the boardroom. They've been working together for 10 years. They don't know each other. They don't have a common goal. So when they find their core value, all the people in the company and the common value of the people become the core value of the company. Then, of course, they select an SDGs that is totally compatible with their core value. So it's not an additional effort, but it will radiate in the public because it's really part of their mission. It is not separate from their mission. Very important. Obviously, when do that, we find actions that has more impact on the on ESGs. We also have a questionnaire that they can fill very quickly to end up with a sustainable policy that auto-generate as they fill out questions. But if they need to apply for a grant, they need to show the world that they're committed. They have something that fits on one page and it's totally connected to their value and their corporate mission. When you do that, you raise in the morning and you want to save your company and save the planet, but at the same time. So it really, really merged together. And obviously, a plan to action goes to strategy. Everything is a strategy. I did a lot of projects to say that if you have a strategy, the way you're going to talk about what you do, when you're going to talk about it, not to do some green washing is very fragile. So, but when you master that part and you can really push your message the right way for the right reason with the right why, it's amazing what's happening. Obviously, we offer when we do it quality insurance, make sure that through the time you meet your objective. And we're going to offer it in line actually because people can do it themselves. It's so cheap, and they end up with a plan of action that it's like a strategic plan. Very important, that word. So yeah, and we get certification when we do it, and people can really show that they're audited. But the boils down to one thing, and I'm finishing in 2 minutes. All these people that you see on screen, who's these people? You don't know. The guy in the middle could be a government guy that was going to allow you a big grant. And the two girls could be the top creative artist, designer that is looking to work for the right people that has the right vision. And you need to communicate it through a plan that doesn't take you 2 years to put together, but can really be articulated in a snap. And this is very, very important. So help them to choose you. Whatever, it's a customer that they want to spend some money, spending, it's voting. So when they want to say, I'm going to go to this carnival instead of this one, because I feel as an anxious consumer that wants to be part of it, to release my anxiety, I want to go visit these people and participate of their experience because I feel I'm part of the change. You're going in their directions. Very important. So, and the last thing, it's important to bridge the gap between when a company is good and has a real plan of action. In our case, what we do, we're launching, it's a first worldwide. It's going to be the first worldwide directory where people can find company, what they do. They can see online and see their plan of action, which SDG they support, so people can do some conscious choice when they move ahead. It's important to embark the B2C, that understand what the B2B is trying to communicate. So when you bridge the gap between the two, then you have a full comprehensive formula where people are together and they're going to really participate. So that's my message today. Government, in our case, is giving us hundreds of $1,000s and financing the company to do it almost for free. It's just to give you an idea how you have access to money if you line up your company in the right direction with the right plan of action. So, and The 4P method for us, my final message is very simple. It's much easier than we believe. Connect it to your brand, make it a strategy, and turn a must-do into a winning strategy. The opportunity is there. I never seen in my life a green light like that to say, wow, it's not a hurdle. It's an opportunity to switch my company in that direction. We just need to find the entrance door. So that was my message.
Thank you so much, André. There was so much in there. Thank you for sharing this. And there's a lot of things that I could start with, but I'm going to go to what you said, that the human is the most important. That's where we start. And I want to ask you, Candice and Pax, since a lot of communities are so connected and committed to their carnival, they have strong cultural ties to it, and they want to keep things traditional when it comes to carnival. How do you balance the traditional carnival elements with the need for sustainable innovation, so that you get also the people who are there to watch, who are there to participate, to be with you? You can go ahead. Well, Pax or Candice?
Candice, you go ahead.
I think for me and the work that I've been doing, yes, tradition is important, especially when you're talking about culture and keeping in mind, where this all came from. As you know, I do teach a course, a carnival arts course, and a huge part of the course itself, the first 3 classes, are about culture. It's about the history of carnival. It's about the history of Caribbean carnival specifically, and why we take up space on the road. So that is the first and foremost, the most important thing that I need my students to understand, because many of them do not come from a Caribbean background or know or understand what it is. They think it's a big street party, and it's nothing more than that. So that is something that I want to make sure that I implement. Then talking about storytelling and traditional characters, and what these characters mean and what they represent. Is a huge part of making sure that I share that with the students. Also, for them to understand what a costume actually looks like. And they come in with a preconceived notion as to, they have an image of a beautiful model in a string beaded bikini and feathers, and they think that's what a carnival costume is. So I try to change their mindset when they come in, that what the tradition is, what these traditional characters are, a Dame Lorraine or a Midnight Robber, and what these characters actually mean. Not a feather in sight in any of these costumes. Not that I have anything against feathered costumes, they're beautiful, but there's more, much more to a carnival costume than beads and feathers. So that is something that I try to implement and get into their minds as well. Then it comes to telling stories and what the story actually is, and how you're going to portray it. So each student is tasked with being their own carnival band. They have an overarching theme, and then they have sub themes that they're using to tell their story. And in that, they're going to then choose one of their sub themes to actually produce a costume. In the costume production part of it, we are doing wire bending workshops, because again, I want to make sure that wire bending is a practice that is passed down to the next generation. These are students that a lot of them don't have discretionable income that they can buy a bag of feathers to make something beautiful. We now can use wire, and I can show them how to make beautiful back pieces and beautiful head pieces with not a feather again in sight. We're using the wire as frames to create something beautiful and off of the body. And then looking at digital fabrication and different methods in implementing new technology into the work that they're doing. A lot of these students, as being fashion students, haven't had the chance to work in these labs. So this course exposes them to the labs and different methods of producing and fabricating. When you're looking at laser cutting, there's so many things that you can do in terms of reducing waste when it comes to even drawing out your templates or drafting patterns. Everything's done on a computer, so you're not using draft paper and what have you, and wasting materials that way. There's a lot less waste when it comes to plotting things onto a fabric or onto a material. So you're reducing the waste that you're expending when you're actually producing the costume. Working with different types of materials, biodegradable materials. Now with 3D printing, you can implement, there are actually biodegradable filaments that can be used, so that even the waste that you have, because when you do 3D print a model, there's a lot of scaffolding that is created that ends up being waste. When you're using traditional PLAs and plastic filaments, that just goes into a landfill. But when you're using biodegradable filaments, that can then be thrown into your garden and into your compost. And so you're, again, reducing the footprint of waste that you're using with materials. And then when it comes to the upcycling, so their course is really weighted on their storytelling, and then their elements of production. So wire bending has to be incorporated, digital fabrication has to be incorporated, and upcycling has to be incorporated. And I have students who have created costumes that were, thrifted lace tablecloths that they then were able to print a beautiful image. I had a student who did these beautiful images of her grandparents that were used on a Rico printer, printed on thrifted lace tablecloth that made the most beautiful costume you could possibly imagine. So there are absolutely ways of implementing sustainable practices that still hold on to tradition and tell stories, but again, pushing the boundaries and pushing the art form forward.
My God, this is so fascinating how it is a full 360 approach. You were talking about the creation, but also all the waste that is created just by, using the computer instead of on drawing on paper. And that approach, I think, is really, like I said, fascinating to see, because when you're doing that with students, obviously, that part where you're studying is becomes such an important base of who you are going to become and how you are going to do things. So thank you so much. Pax, on your side, on the event production, could you tell us a bit more how you implement things, and maybe give us an idea of upcycled or recyclable materials that you have found the most effective? If you can give also an example on that when using for costumes or floats in your case.
Well, I find myself as a gatekeeper, really, because physically to be somebody like Candice doing rather than me. But we also try to make sure that people are respecting each other, because going back to you talking about the old and the new, the traditional and the modern. If the modern does not respect the old, there will be no relationship. I'll give you an example. I organized the carnival in Hackney. In the past, for the groups to take part in the procession, they will put a hat and then choose who's going to be number 1, number 2, number 3. That creates war, and that stops all the sustainability business. What I do now is that we work out those who have got acoustic stuff, which is the Africans and the Samba people. They are all using acoustic stuff, which we encourage. Also, our one step into sustainability, we put them somewhere away from those who are playing the loudest stuff. So that way it encourages those who are trying to be sustainable to a bit more sustainable. What if I bang them in the middle of this noisy thing, next year they won't want to be doing anything sustainable because you're banging them. And then because I'm also trying to avoid talking about costumes, because there is people talking about costumes, there's 2 fashion people here. So I'll try to talk about other things that make Carnival. So one of the things that not necessarily make Carnival in Trinidad, but in America and UK, it does. It's part of Carnival. That's sound systems. Now, they need to be sustainable as well. So I launched a sound system this year at the Green Agog Festival, trying to make a statement that you can be green even in sound systems. So we did work with a company called Little Big Sound System, and I think I gave you some of those images there. And that sound system is powered by battery. And when we travel, all my crew, they traveled with the sound system was brought by eco-friendly car. And we all traveled by train, and we carried most of our stuff by train. That there we did it, and then there was the idea of that was just to make a statement, and that when the press covers it, then that gets to people start thinking about, oh yeah, okay, we can see what it is. The other thing I just wanted to pick up, which André said, was to do with that people have got a choice or not. Personally, as far as I'm concerned, commercial companies, businesses, they've got a choice to use sustainability or not. I run Hackney Carnival, and it's run by the local authority. So when we put the budget comes to £1,200,000. They'll fork it in. So I come in as a artistic director, whatever. I'll put, this is what I want. Sustainability is part of it. Then they have to bid. But if you go to the carnival I run in How, we are getting money from neighbors, we're getting money from our uncle and so on. So sustainability, the choice will be not to do it because I don't have enough money, rather than a choice that it has to be done. So that's something that also needs to be understood, so that the corporate world needs to understand also, and also how we educate. When you talk about the funders, like one other thing you mentioned, André, about funders, right? The way you put in your application for the sustainability, you have to say all the things, which is exactly the same thing that people like Clyde or whatever would put in their application. They want to do something with elderly people. They have to research and actually talk about the windrush generation and so on. But when it comes to sustainability, most of these groups, they don't understand it. So in order to put the application to do sustainability, they have to pay somebody like you, André, or me, or somebody to put that element that they don't know about. Whereas if they're putting application for a costume, they know exactly what they're going to do. But sustainability is a new buzzword to them. It's also, there's quite a lot of stuff they don't understand, but the funders and the sponsors want that. So it's a matter of educating people so that they can argue and say, this is the reason why I do this. Because if you go to Notting Hill, they do sustainability. All the costumes, most of the costumes are made recycled. But if you look at it, you're not going to say, oh, Notting Hill Carnival is very sustainable in what they do. But if you look at the costumes, people are using recycled materials. They're using somebody using all things to come up with what we need to make our world green.
So it is wrong to think, Pax, with what you're saying, that a smaller carnival that has less money can implement sustainable practices, because we tend to think that you need money in order to implement these initiatives.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, there's certain things like, so when there are people trying to try the biodiesel and all that, I think Toronto Carnival, I think Candice might confirm on this. They did try out that it would really well. I don't know if they are continuing with that. But things like that, what I'm trying to say to the community that I work with in Carnival, the community that I work with in the different places from UK to Calcutta, whatever, they don't understand some of those terms as well. So it's the education is the most important thing. That's why things like what André is doing there is quite useful, and also going in colleges like what Candice is doing is quite useful. Get them when they are young, people can understand what we are doing, because our elders like me, I'm too old to understand all this biodiversity and all the oxygen and this and that and so on. So the education is quite crucial. I see Andrea laughing there. Did I say something wrong?
No, I so agree. I so agree. And if I may say one thing, is that I hear outstanding, sorry, okay, and the good choices are made, and the artistic needs money. And I see in Canada sponsors, bank, all company that already throw in immense amount of money. But what you need to do to attract that money is to say, get your act together in a very simple way, 20 hours, get your act together, make sure that you connect your ambitious, in a systematic way that you can measure what you do, measure your impact. So then when you can measure, you can communicate your path, and then make sure that you attach all that to us SDGs, that is the universal roadmap. So everybody, everywhere you go, understand where you stand. And most important, connect the story to who you are really. So, and then we connect that in the 2-pagers, 3-pagers document. You send this out, you attract money, support, anything you want. I see it every day. So this is why I'm a bit off road today, but I think this is the starting point that makes it happen after. So this is why I was so happy to contribute, hopefully, that part. Yeah.
Candice, we just talked about, the fact that we have the impression that things could cost more. You mentioned when you were talking about the students creating costumes that they don't necessarily have money to buy these, these feathers or these beautiful beads. In integrating sustainability in what you do you find that you have challenges in sourcing the materials, or is it on the contrary easier because you're, let's say, using Pax's term, transforming junk into new?
Great question. So I think that there are two sides to it. So myself and SugaCayne, we are a very small band in the Toronto Carnival, right? Which has its challenges being small. Your financial resources are, stifled, but it also gives you the opportunity to not have to mass produce things either, right? So mass production, I think, is where we've fall into an issue with Carnival, the way that it is being produced at the moment. And I also think it is aiding to the loss of the culture, and I'll explain myself. So a mass camp is a place where you come together and you build and you produce costumes. And for the longest time, it was a place where the community would come together. You eat, you drink, you listen to music, you commune, you make costumes together. Nowadays, you go into mass camps and they're empty because costumes are being produced in China. So there isn't this communal aspect of all of us getting together and making our costumes anymore, right? And I am looking at changing the format of my band. So in the past, I design, the sections of my band, and will mass produce the pieces for each section. Now I'm looking at changing it a little bit. If I have, say, 10 sections in my band, 5 of them may be sections that I'll decide to mass produce, because I do have masqueraders that come from all over the world that won't be able to be in the mass camp for months building costumes with us. But now looking at other ways where I'm now in the schools, and I'm doing workshops outside of carnival season, and I'm meeting creatives that want to be involved and want to create costumes. The idea of possibly having 5 sections that, again, are all related to the band. If the band is, the solar system for this particular year, and, the sun, the moon, and Venus are all mass produced sections, but, Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus are sections that have an overarching idea. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is the drawing, but you as the participator can come and enjoy the band for a fee, and I can hold workshops and show you how to make materials that you have thrifted or brought to us, and we can then build your costume to resemble the costume that we're going to produce, so that you're on the road, and it again brings the community back into the mass camp, and shows you how to reuse materials, because you can't mass produce thrifted materials, right? At the end of the day, if everything's supposed to look the same, I can't use one tablecloth and make 400 costumes, right? But it could be one person that will bring the tablecloth, another person that will use denim, another person that will use, recycled plastics, and have a costume that looks similar to the original drawing. And I'm thinking of that sort of being the way that we can bring the culture back into the mass camp, and bring sustainability and reusing materials back into the art form.
It's great, and I feel it's such great strategies to bring the people and make them want to do it that way, because right. Like you said, we've been saying it a lot, but there's just a lot of education to do, and once you find out about it, it just makes, I feel that, like André said, it's not an option. You just want to go towards that. Pax, I think you were raising your hand.
No, I just wanted to expand on what Candice was saying, because she just mentioned something that gets me very upset. I used to go to Trinidad, and I've stopped. Gemma, you notice I stopped going to Trinidad for the last 6 years and so on, because of what Candice mentioned, which is like, really, people are no longer making costumes. They're just ordering it from China and here. I used to go to Trinidad to see all these exciting things that Peter mentioned everybody was doing, but that's all seemed to be dying. But the reason I'm mentioning that is mainly because at the beginning, we talk about new technology and the elders. We could only buy costumes from one company in Trinidad. Sequins, beads, and all that. That's what was happening 20 years ago. Just one company. And then internet came, and I was so excited that the internet's come now. So people started buying material. Even when I spoke with the company, I can't remember their name, they said they were losing a lot of money because of new technology. Yeah. But what it is people started finding out they can use this now. Like, for example, I had a student here from my lab training who was saying to me, they just like really got the Carnival person to sit there, and then they put all this new technology around them. And then they could work out really how they want the costume. They could go inside the back and so on, that kind of stuff. That wasn't there before. That's happened. But then the sad thing is when they discovered that they could buy costumes from here and there cheaper than they were doing in Trinidad, then they found out that they can buy costumes completely made in China, even cheaper, which has killed Carnival in Trinidad. I just wanted to raise that because it's something that's really doing my head in.
Speaking of Samarus.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're seeing that everywhere. Like, we know that I also teach. I teach fashion history here at Collège La Salle, and so I'm with students that are from 17 to 21 years old, and they do have this ouverture to sustainability. They all shop thrifted, you know, they have these ideas, they're very aware of what's happening in the environment, but at the same time, Shein has never been so big. And these are the people that are buying there. So it's very, very contradictory. And I can see that you have that same feeling in the carnival world, because it's kind of you want to go to the sustainable way, but at the same time there's that kind of easy path.
Yeah.
But then you're losing so much of the essence of the soul of what it is. Pax, you just mentioned the importance of technology, so I want to let you talk about that too. I want to know, what role does the technology play in supporting sustainable goals? And maybe, I don't know, I'll let you see where you want to talk, where you want to bring this, but maybe particularly in managing material, energy use, and transportation.
Well, technology is a game changer in achieving sustainability goals for carnivals. It's all to do with what you were saying. Everybody's mentioned really the education and so on. I mean, where I'm involved in, for example, I mean, we tried the pilot solar lighting costumes in Luton a while ago. I think with Manuela Benin from Brazil. We did this as part of the UKCCA thing, and it looked really well. But again, most things that get tried and don't happen is because of the funding. Otherwise, the template was there and everything to happen. And then also, as I say, mention as well that people are using electric. A lot of people are now using electric batteries to power stuff rather than using these heavy generators. And I think I gave an example of the stuff that we did with UKCCA, where we worked with five regions, and all of them had different ways of doing it. Some of them actually just use the biodiesel powered generators just as a trial. And of that there, I'm quite sorry because I didn't actually follow that up. But the idea was to reduce energy consumption. And there is a lot of opportunities like that. The other thing I was going to say is, when the funders and sponsors in every country decide youth is the main thing, they go all the way. I noticed that in England, there's a point where disability was the most important thing. So when I organized my carnival, they'll send a company called Julie Bicycles to inspect that I've got seating for disabled people. Yeah. And then if you do that, you actually get more points in funding. I haven't seen that with sustainability. So there's a campaign that's needed to go with that, because it's really, thing. And then there is also other ways of using this sustainability. I think one person who's done it really well is a lady called Mariana Pino. She's from Brazil. When you finish Carnival in Brazil, same thing with Trinidad. When you walk behind, you could come up with a whole truck full of costumes, because people get so wasted and they leave these things here behind. That in itself is also pollution. Even though we look, oh, that's a nice thing, but it's pollution. So what Mariana did was she collected most of these costumes from Rio, brought them to England. And what she's been doing now is to actually running workshops. And I booked it actually for Hackney Carnival, where she ran a whole site where people could use these costumes and design different things like that and recycle as well. So these are all some of the things that's sort of like needing to happen. And one of the biggest example of sustainability is the Junkanoo Carnival, the Junkanoo itself, Junkanoo Festival in the Bahamas. All the big massive floats, they're massive. They look like the Brazilian floats with cars and so on. All that is being made of sticks and cardboard and just paint it and feathers. And the carnival is beautiful. And then ways you get other people saying, oh, I can't do sustainable because it doesn't look good. Go to Bahamas and see what it's like. That's a really good way they do it in practicing that. And also, I think one more place I sort of been to is Belgium. There's a carnival called Oost Carnival. They promote bike-powered floats, and they encourage people to come to the site by public transport. This is also one thing that most of the carnival people forget to do. So in Hackney, what we do is we close that whole area. Anyone wants to come into the carnival footprint, they have to come by public transport. That way it forces people to actually start thinking as well in terms of using transport to avoid burning the ozone layer.
I just got a little message saying that we're almost at the Q&A part already. I can't believe it passed so fast. But I do want to ask you one last question. I want to start with you, Candice. Can you tell me if you foresee a shift in carnival culture where eco-friendly practices that we've been discussing about the whole time here becomes an expected standard? And if that happens, what impact would it have on the industry globally? I know it's a big question, but I mean, like, can we expect that that becomes the standard?
I think it's going to have to be the standard eventually. And similar to what I sort of just said, I think that the if we change the way we're thinking and go back to what we were doing originally, it was sustainable. We were reusing, right? We were taking discarded materials and making something new out of them, right? So this isn't anything new. It's not a new idea. It's actually the old idea that we're now bringing back to the forefront. So I think it was possible then, and it can be possible now. We don't always have to have new and shiny and large. We can create large and we can create shiny with what's old already. So I think it's just changing our mindset, and that is the biggest hurdle, is to change the mindset. And again, when it comes to how does it impact the carnival globally, like I said before, I think it helps to bring back community. It helps to bring back, us working together. It helps to bring back the culture in the mass camp. It helps to do a lot of these things when we're thinking outside of the box. And this is what I tell my students: forget what you know, think outside of the box, and let's try something new. And you'll be surprised at what comes out of it. So I think it can only be good, because we've gotten so far away from the culture itself and what we're actually doing and what this actually is, that bringing it back to what's natural, what's around us, what we've already been using, it connects us back to the culture, and it connects us back to each other.
Yeah, definitely words that we should remember, going back to what it was, and not thinking that going back means staying in the past. Right. It's actually innovating, but using the knowledge that we knew. I have the chance to be the ambassador for le Salon des Artisans, Conseil des métiers d'art du Québec, so craftsmen and artisans, and we feel that the eco-conscious is something very innovative, very today, but actually it was the way that they did things, making sure that there's no waste was the way they did it. So we have to definitely go back to that. And Pax, one last question for you, a big one also, but what advice would you give to other carnival organizers that are actually at the beginning and are considering first steps towards greening their own event?
The crucial thing is to always start small. People get very carried away at the beginning. I want to do a carnival procession. It's going throughout the whole local park, and this can go this and that. So I think to start small, then you can measure what you're going to deal with. When you start big, everything gets lumbered in, then you lose out. It just goes back also to Candice's point, really, that, we're going back where we started from. When people look at Carnival, where did it start? I mean, where did we people come from? We came from Africa. There was no Gucci. People wore leaves. Yeah. And there was no, iPhone in iPhone 6, iPhone 16. No, it was the drum. And if you look at these things, those were all sustainable. That's what we need to go back to.
Thank you. As I just said, I want to be able to give you time to ask questions. So this is the time to take the mic or write down your questions so that we can you can also take advantage of our guests in answering your questions. So do we have any that have come in already, Tony?
Yeah,
or
there are some right in the Q&A box that you'll see in the bottom there.
Okay, the Q&A.
There's three questions presently.
Okay. Can I let you? Oh, here the chat. Sorry, I was looking for it.
Not in the
can
chat.
I let you? Can I let you ask the question, because I can't see them? I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect. So this one is from Joanne Guiron. And it is for Pax. Since when the carnival in Trinidad is dying because of the Chinese costume, Pax?
I'm happy to answer that question. I didn't say the carnival in Trinidad is dying. I say the creation of costumes is dying. That's why I mentioned Peter Minshall. Since when did we last see something like that in Trinidad? That's what I mean.
Okay, perfect. Joanne also has another question. What would push people to make their own costume like before inside the camp, mass camp, and not buying their costume online anymore? how can we reduce the price of the costumes made directly in Trinidad or Bahamas? Maybe Candice, you could answer that one.
Okay. So I think again, when it comes to it would reduce the price of your costume absolutely if the model that I was suggesting introducing would work. Again, you have a theme and you have an idea of what your costume is supposed to look like. You can now go and source materials directly. So you're not paying a designer and production team to mass produce pieces that end up increasing the cost of things. You go and source materials, and then you come into a workshop and you're advised on how to make your costume look like the costume that we all will be wearing. You'd be investing your time. So instead of spending the money on the costume, you're now spending your time and getting your resources. But that's how it would work to reduce most likely the cost of your costume and encourage people to get back into the mass camp. And the mass camp is more than just making your costume. It is communal. It is cultural. It is a part of the mass experience. There's nothing like building costumes with a group of people and then being on the road with those people. You've now created community. So the road experience is even 10 times more than it would be if you just purchased your costume online and then picked it up on distribution day and headed on to the road on the Monday or Tuesday. This is something where you would have been involved in the production of your costume and you've created community that way. That's how I would answer that.
Can I add something onto that as well?
Yes, Pax.
I know a group that was telling me that they spent about like £8,000 last year on feathers, and this year they spent £200. I personally hate feathers, but that's another story. But what they did, they bought a machine that take cardboard, you put it in the cardboard there, and it cuts it into feathers. So that cut completely. So there's a few things and choices of things that you could do to cut your cost.
Very good, thank you. This one is from Yves-Marie Serraline, which is in French, so I will paraphrase. J'ai eu l'occasion de réaliser. He is part of the Carnival Association out of Martinique, and he has had à plus de 12 ans pour une sonorisation. They were able to use solar panels on their thing about maybe for the past 12 years on their float. And nous avons aussi utilisé des costumes de la lumière avec des lumières toutes alimentées 100%. And they also were able to do carnival costumes, which were 100% battery operated and lit up with mini solar panels as well. By 20 of the various groups in the parade. So his question is, do you think that this type of action is interesting is interesting for other carnivals to try? And also, if you think that here we would be able to indicate les résultats obtenus, and if we would be able to get proper, if we'd be able to get results from these initiatives here. Do I repeat it?
Yes,
I got go ahead.
I struggle to follow the question though.
Yeah, because I was translating simultaneously.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
So,
Tony, I found the question if you want me to try.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Yves-Marie Serraline is from the Carnival Federation of Martinique, and he's saying that he's been using costumes that have been implemented with lights that are 100% sorry, I'm trying to Tony, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and then I'm looking for my words. But with solar
That's
panels.
what Tony did.
But that's what he has done on his side, and he wants to know: would it be interesting to test what he has done in other carnivals? And if you, on your respective carnivals, have tried it, what kind of results did you get?
I would say definitely share that. I think I mentioned earlier when I was doing my talking that we tried a similar thing in UKCCA, which is a carnival center in Luton. And it was a lady called Manuela Benin. She's the one who tried a similar thing, but on a very small scale because we had to get a funding to do that. And it wasn't enough money, so she couldn't continue. But if somebody could continue that, that's really, really useful. And I think this is the whole thing. And when we're talking about education, educating the people involved in Carnival, it's not just like read in Miami or in Montreal. We have to share all over the world, not just in one place. And then that way things can move faster.
Great. And I'm going to continue, Tony. So we have another question from Enrico Moro. He says that in Venice Carnival, we have the tradition of self-made costumes and competitions for people showing their own costumes. And that's a big point of pride in itself. And it seems that there's no similar competition in other carnivals. Is this true? Because it's very surprising to him that we wouldn't use that competition to, encourage people to do their own costumes.
So no, there are individual costumes that are made. There are individual competitions. Absolutely, that still exists. When I'm speaking of the mass production, it is more on the band scale and the mass production of each band and each section within the band. So there are still individual competitions, and yes, they use innovative materials and reuse materials all the time, especially the king and queen competitions where a lot of the bases and the structures are reused year after year. The frames are reused year after year. So definitely that element is still there, and that is something that absolutely is a competition and exists. I'm more talking about the bands, the masquerade bands that go along the carnival route, and the mass production of those costumes and what that could look like if we now implement bringing back making your own costume in that aspect. But yeah, there definitely are still competitions that people are making their own costumes still.
If I can add, from our research in researching carnivals around the world, there are various carnivals that also do the handing down of things from generation to generation, as in Bulgaria. They do a lot of that where there's one of their festivals, which it's primarily that because they have a couple of carnivals. And so, yeah, there are various carnivals where that part of the tradition, I would assume it's more European than the modern day Caribbean or Brazilian carnivals. But yeah, it would be, there are carnivals out there that have that kind of initiative or tradition in passing on this being sustainable. There's a response from Caroline in the chat. If you wanted to go there, Lolitta.
A response? Okay, I'm looking for it.
You left one
question. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on what Tony was saying. I just lost my set of thing. But I was going to say there's another question as well that you skipped up with Sharon Wickham or something like that.
Yes, I'm going to get to it.
No,
sure.
hold on. Sorry, Lolitta, I just remembered what I was going to say. I think I was just coming up on Candice's answer. And also just to sort of say, people need to understand Carnival is not one size fits it all when it comes to global Carnival. If you go to England, the biggest European English carnival is about 500 years old. It's called Bridgewater. Their practice is using light bulbs to make these structures. If you go to Vireggio, it's these big costumes that are making a statement to the people. When you go to Venice, it's all about indoors. It's mainly indoors. I've been there so many times. And it's slightly different from what we're doing in Trinidad and other places. So I think you can pick up, like in Venice, it's all to do with mask. They always say there's a procession. I've been to Venice a few times. I've never seen a procession, but I enjoy a lot being indoors in the mansions where they do all this stuff. So the carnival is all different, but I could take an individual. You're allowed to have an individual character in any carnival. So I could take one character from there and just perform by myself and so on. But I just need to read to make it clear that you need to understand the carnival is not one size fits all. There is different kinds of carnival.
Exactly.
And I will get to Sharon's question, Pax. So Sharon lives in England, and she's very interested in your alternative options to the big sound systems that we tend to use there in the UK. And she also wants to know if you're available for assistance in setting up her carnival and reading.
Me?
Yes, you, Pax. She wants to hear about the sound system.
I can't read on my glass. Okay, yeah, definitely. I think the sound system itself, personally, I would encourage to happen all over the country, really, because there is so much of this generator thing that drives me mad. So this particular sound system, this person lives, if they live in England, I'm working with an organization called Little Big Sound System. Little Big Sound System is run by Matthew, his own thing. Matthew is the one who's the chief executive of Nottingham Carnival. So if you want to know, I can introduce this, because the young person who makes these sound systems is called Nigel, and he's making lots, he's actually getting a lot of orders, and so that it's all sustainable. I'm hoping in 10 years' time, just going back to your question, I'm hoping in 10 years' time, when it comes to sound system, everybody will be using battery operated. There's nothing like all these generators.
So hope this answers
your question. And then in terms
of,
the other question is the assistants. Oh yeah, assistant. They need assistants. Yeah, they know where to get me. They can always get me in. They're in Reading, right? In Reading, I'm actually a patron for the organization called Culture Mix. So I do quite a lot of stuff in Reading. So yes, get in touch. I know the carnival is not happening at the moment there, apart from these carnivals of the world, which is just happens in a supermarket.
Thank you very much, Pax. Tony, you were mentioning that, because I couldn't see
in the chat comment. There is a comment from Caroline.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, because again, it's in French. Bonjour.
Good luck, Tony.
Oh. Wait a second, let me see.
She's saying that in Nice they use des plateformes électriques. They use electric platforms pour les petits chars. So for their small floats, they use electricity over gas. They also use LED lighting. Their confetti is biodegradable. The metallic structures are reutilized, and the polystyrene composts pour être travaillé, to be reused. Nous distribuons des plateaux repas non utilisés aux personnes nécessaires. And everything, all their food that is not used, they give it to those in need at the end of the festival. So these are ways that Nice has implemented sustainability in their practices. Thank you for sharing, Carolyn. Pardon?
Now, just that's interesting, because originally we had invited Anne Cedro, who used to run the Nice Carnival, because I've been there to charge a few times. It's quite interesting. Even this confetti that he's talking about, it's not just thrown to the people. They actually use it with actual machine that goes on, where the artists will be throwing to people like they're disturbing them, but it's in a nice way, and it's all like really, recyclable.
Thank you for that addition, Pax. So, do we have any more questions?
Yes, there's one question that's been added, and it's a long one in French. So I actually put it in Google Translate, and like Perfect. That I'll try to make sure that I have every element. So in Martinique, there's no tradition of mass groups with 2,000 members or more. The larger groups were outfit of traditional characters who have been known for 1 or 2 centuries. The population chooses to create numerous costumes for the street, with small group with creations created as a family, in the neighborhood, in a school, or by a designer. And this is also the case for street musicians who have their costumes, which change between, can we say, Shrove Sunday and Ash Wednesday. Yeah. There's a lot of visual diversity and acoustic music, and very little tanking on trucks with sound system. So this is also a comment of what they've been doing on their side. Thank you very much, Yves-Marie Serraline.
That was very good translation, Lolitta.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not me.
Google's excellent. Google is excellent.
Real time.
Well, actually,
And
there's that one better, but
yeah, and we do have one last question for Candice from Sharon Wickman. She was wondering if Candice does an online course in carnival art so that people outside of Toronto can also have access to your knowledge.
Funny you asked, Sharon, because we are starting to develop that. So we have workshops coming up for 2025, and I'm planning on recording some of them and being able to offer them online. So that is something that we'll be offering in the new year for sure.
Great. That's amazing. Is there a way that we can find out about it? Is it through your Instagram account or your website that we
the
know?
best way to find out would be we're at SugaCayne, SugaCayne on all platforms, and you'll be able to find all the information there.
And we'll make sure to share it as a future and forever partner on our social medias as well. As for the same for the rest of everybody as well. So we'd like to thank everybody for coming today, everybody for this amazing, honestly, amazing session. The exchange, I feel, was necessary. And I think that we have opened on many people's eyes as to where they can start implementing these kinds of initiatives into their carnival arts practices and better the world. So thank you, everybody, and we'll get ready for our next session. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. It was quite a pleasure meeting everybody.
Yeah.
André, if you can send the host back to Lorraine so that way she can take over the screen again.
Let me see.
And if anybody has anything to say in closing.
I just want to say it was an honor being here with all of you and learn so much and more invigorated to go back and see how else we can help to make the world a better place, like Tony said.
Now, with me, I was just going to say, I would like to thank, I think, especially the people sitting on this panel. I mean, we exchanged, it was quite a lot of, I would love to meet you again, but it just brought a lot of different angles. And I got a particular angle I'm good in, and Candice got an angle is good in, Andre's got a good angle. That actually really made the whole thing good for us.
That's exactly what we thought.
If I may say one last word, if I
just quickly finish, the last thing I was going to say is, in terms of sustainability, there is also some information on Jankanyu TV where it talks about what the environment is, what we're doing the environment, how people in Papua New Guinea do it, and so on. So I'm just like to say, if you could share that as well. Sorry, André. Sorry, I'm really sorry.
No, but last word says, I think I heard some outstanding thing today, and I see that sometimes the pressure of pricing and technology, it's a big clash between the real challenge. It's time to apply some lateral thinking and say that the past didn't need that much technology, and we need to switch sometimes from looks great to how we feel about it. And there's people with a proper plan of action that are ready. We know that local things cost more expensive, but there's people that are ready to finance the difference to tell a better story out there and not to worry about pricings and technology, but the why we're doing that. Let's make sure that story is clear, and I'm sure the support will come from any direction.
Thank you so much. And if I can quickly add, I just want to say that I really feel honored to have had the chance to discuss with you. I really hope that I get to come see what you do closer. Candice, I think it's going to be easier to come and see you. But thank you for sharing. I think this discussion, as Tony mentioned, is so necessary right now. And I can only, feel for what you have shared with me that the future of the Carnival is very hopeful when it comes to sustainability.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Ciao, ciao.